Some rules exist for a reason, but when curiosity takes over, we often learn why too late. Obie gasped, his breath caught in his throat as the world around him seemed to freeze. The market was no longer the lively place he knew. Dark shadows crept across the ground, and strange whispers filled his ears. He couldn't understand them, but they were there, circling him. He looked around, hoping for a way out, but all he saw were the glowing red eyes of things not meant to be seen. The air felt thick, heavy. It was as if time had slowed, and he was stuck in the middle of something much bigger than himself. Then a deep voice broke through the darkness. "Obie, you were warned." Obie was a blessing to his parents, Ikenna and Nneka, who had always prayed for a son. For years they had only daughters, and while they loved their girls dearly, the village believed a son was a sign of prosperity. After many years, the gods finally granted them their wish. Obie, their only son, was born, and the entire village celebrated his arrival. As Obie grew, he became known for his lively spirit and curiosity. He was always asking questions, always pushing boundaries. If there was a rule, Obie wanted to know why it existed, and none of the village's rules interested him more than the strange, unexplained command, "Never look between your legs in the market." No one ever gave an explanation for the rule. It was just something everyone knew. His friends, Elle and Namdi, never questioned it. "Obie, my father says it's to keep us safe," Elle would say whenever Obie brought it up. "But safe from what?" Obie would ask. He was tired of warnings without answers. The New Yam festival was just around the corner, and the village was preparing for the grand celebration. Obie, always the one to chase adventure, had already made up his mind. During the festival, he would finally find out what the big deal was. After all, he thought, it was just a story to keep children in line. What could really happen? The market was buzzing with excitement as the festival began. Obie and his friends joined the games, laughing and running through the crowd. But in the back of Obie's mind, the thought still lingered, the rule. The curiosity was like an itch he couldn't scratch. Every time he saw the adults walk past the market, he noticed how they avoided even looking down. It made no sense. After a while, his friends got caught up in the dancing and eating, but Obie couldn't shake the feeling. It was as though the market itself was calling to him. He glanced around. Everyone was busy with the festivities. No one was paying attention to him. Now was his chance. Earlier that day, Elle had warned him again. "Don't even think about it, Obie. The village chief told my father the rule goes back to the ancestors. Breaking it is asking for trouble." But Obie had only smiled. "You're afraid of a story, Elle? Nothing's going to happen." Now, standing alone in the market, his heart beat faster. Not with fear, but with excitement. He took a deep breath, and with one last glance to make sure no one was watching, he bent down and looked between his legs. For a moment, nothing happened. Obie blinked, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. He chuckled to himself, ready to stand up and laugh at the superstition. But then, the ground beneath him shifted. It was subtle at first, like a small tremor. He frowned, feeling the air grow strangely still. The music from the festival seemed distant, muffled. Obie straightened up, but the world around him didn't feel right anymore. The shadows in the market stretched longer than they should have, and the people seemed to fade into the background, like they were part of a dream. His chest felt tight, not from fear, but from a sense that something had changed. That's when he heard it. The whispers. Soft at first, like the wind rustling through the trees, but then they grew louder, more distinct. Obie turned, looking for his friends, but they were nowhere to be seen. Then he saw them. Eyes. Red eyes appearing one by one from the shadows around the market. Obie's breath caught. Figures he couldn't fully see began to move toward him, creeping slowly, their whispers growing louder. His skin prickled with cold, and suddenly he understood. The rule wasn't just a silly story. It was a warning. Obie stumbled back, his legs weak. The figures circled him, their voices blending into one. "You looked. You saw what was not yours to see." Obie tried to speak, but his voice wouldn't come out. His hands shook as he searched for a way out of the market, but the shadows kept moving, closing in on him. Suddenly, a deep voice boomed through the market, shaking the ground. "Obie, you have crossed into their world." It was the village chief holding the sacred staff of the ancestors. His face was stern, eyes filled with a mix of anger and fear. The spirits paused, their glowing eyes flickering as the chief stepped forward. "Leave him," the chief commanded. "He is just a boy, foolish but innocent." The spirits hesitated, but the chief raised the staff higher, chanting in a language Obie didn't understand. The figures began to fade, their whispers turning into low growls before vanishing completely. The red eyes blinked out, one by one, until the market returned to its normal, lively state. Obie stood frozen, his legs weak as he realized how close he had come to being lost in the spirit world forever. The chief placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice low and grave. "You were lucky today, Obie. The spirits do not easily forgive those who break their laws." Obie nodded, his mouth dry, heart still racing. He had always been curious, but now he understood. Some things weren't meant to be questioned. The festival continued as though nothing had happened, but Obie knew better. He had glimpsed the other side, the world beyond, and he would never forget what he saw.